Sláinte. Have you ever had the experience of really liking someone and then finding out that the person you really like likes somebody that you really do not like? I'm not talking about like as in want to marry or anything. I mean someone whose presence in your life is very important to you because you value their opinions and you share outlooks on many things. Then you find out that they adore someone that you cannot stand. You can't like him because I hate him. You have to hate him too. I can show you how to hate him right along with me. This may just be a study in politics, but that's something that's often involved in theatrical life. I've wanted to go there a few times. You have to be able to forgive yourself for these things, eh? There are actors who are not collaborative. I don't know how it happens, but it does. Be prepared for facing the actor who truly cares only for himself. The rest of the production matters not a whit. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Mandy Patinkin. Wait a minute, you say. He was great in The Princess Bride, Yentl, Evita, and several other exclamation points. I grudgingly agree. He was great, but you don't want to work with him because you don't work with him. You work and he works, but you do not work together. A few friends who had done shows with Mandy told me that he was kind of crazy, but no one had prepared me for a personality and work ethic that flies in the face of everything that I have come to understand is appropriate in the society of the theater. I used to wonder how it was possible to have conservative Republicans working in the theater. How could they stand spending so much time around all those free-thinking liberals? How could people with such different ideas about how the world should be run be so damned likable? Now, don't get the idea that Mandy is a conservative Republican. I don't know what his political affiliations are. We never had that kind of discussion. In fact, we never had any kind of discussion. My very strong opinions about Mandy come from two very different occasions of sharing the stage. We spoke very little with one another in either case, but you can't help but learn a little about someone's inner workings when you go through a rehearsal process together. My first opportunity to stand face-to-face with Mandy was on stage in Sunday in the Park with George during performance. I was a temporary replacement for the German coachman in the first act and Dennis, George's assistant, in the second. Now, stage management was terrific in preparing me for jumping onto that moving train. I had detailed directions on where to be, what to say, and when and how to say it. That may sound kind of restraining, but I loved it. I wanted to fit perfectly into this moving jigsaw puzzle. And stage management and the rehearsal accompanist made that possible. I didn't see anything of Mandy until we were on stage in performance on Broadway. My put-in had been done at an understudy rehearsal, and the understudies had all helped me to know just what was expected of me. I stepped out onto the stage fully confident that I would give the other actors the same character that they had grown accustomed to with a somewhat different face, and I did. And I was lovingly welcomed into the family and played out my 5 weeks without incident. Anticlimactic, huh? That's not the climax. I wondered what all the fuss was about. I hadn't gotten one complaint from Mandy. Not so much as a note from stage management that I needed to stand a little to the right to avoid blocking his light. Mandy, as far as I could see at the time, was the picture of professionalism. There was even one instance when I had delivered an offstage line using the wrong word. I substituted the word alternator for the word regulator. It just fell out of my mouth that way. Mandy picked up the ball like a pro. And just like they teach in those acting classes at the neighborhood playhouse, he repeated the word I had used with this incredulous tone to his voice. Alternator? I mean the regulator, George. And the scene just carried on from there. After the show, I overheard Mandy laughingly tell the stage manager that he couldn't just let that one go. What were they all talking about? I even came to know a cousin of Mandy's, Laura Patinkin. I had seen her in a couple of productions and found her delightful. When she heard that I'd spent those 5 weeks in Sunday in the Park with Mandy, she grimaced in a way that led me to think she was preparing herself to hear another set of horror stories about working with her cousin. I told her that I had had a great time and I didn't know what all the fuss was about. Then, some years later, I did a workshop with Mandy. I learned. Pat Cook and Rick Fryer had written a wonderful musical adaptation of Captain's Courageous. It had been read by a couple of casts, and I had been in a workshop that had ended up being done in full production at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. Now, Manhattan Theater Club was going to workshop it again with the idea of doing it in one of their spaces at City Center. They got Mandy to play Manuel, the Portuguese fisherman. Now, this is a play about men working together to wrestle a living from the sea. Shipmates and dory mates and camaraderie and sharing are what this story is all about. Apparently, our director thought Mandy was a good fit. From day one, he set himself apart. Where one would expect that the point of rehearsals would be to build a sense of oneness within this ensemble, we had an ensemble and Mandy. In the context of group scenes, which was a significant portion of the play, a scene would build momentum and intensity and a rhythm, and then it was time for Mandy to speak. Blink, blink. He would wait. Blink until all eyes had turned to him. He would deliver his lines as if he were in an entirely different play that was just starting every time he had to speak. Unconscionable. He worked out his through line entirely on his own. You remember those trust exercises you did in Acting 101? Mandy, not so much. We got to the point of performing our rehearsal room staging for industry people early one weekday afternoon. The audience was made up of agents and producers and a few friends, most of whom had left the office with the intention of being away for a couple of hours and then would be returning to finish off their workday. Our show started off with a short scene in which Harvey Chain establishes his regrettable character, then falls off an ocean liner over the Grand Banks. The scene shifts to the deck of the fishing schooner where most of the action of the show takes place. Big number with lots of ropes and props, including numerous halyards, which had, they required 5 to 10 minutes to preset for each run-through. Big finish to the number, and things go quiet for the entrance of Manuel in his fishing dory. And here comes Mandy. And he stops. Now, this is paraphrased, but he said something to the effect of, I'm very nervous. Could we just take it back so I can get started again? Cast all looks to stage management and to our director to see just what we should do. We get a nod, and we all begin setting up for the end of the big number that we have just finished and cleared from the stage. We pick up with the last chorus, and the audience very graciously applauds our second effort at this rousing sea chanty. And things go quiet for the entrance of Manuel in his fishing dory, and here comes Mandy. And he stops. No, what I meant was, could we go back from the beginning? I had heard stories of Mandy stopping the orchestra in concert when he hadn't gotten a song started just the way he wanted. Reports were that someone from the audience had gotten fed up with Mr. Self-Indulgence and had screamed something like, "Just sing the fucking song!" We were not blessed with anyone of such noble character in our afternoon of theater. We looked to our director. She indicated that yes, we should go back to the beginning. We all, except Mandy, helped to reestablish the preset of all of those ropes and buckets. Everyone in the cast rewound their characters to the top of the show. Never mind that we had all been very capable of being ready to begin at the appointed time. We would all find our way back to the beginning of our journey, back to the beginning of our yellow brick road, and hope that this time Mandy would find that the preparation had been satisfactory to him. Few of the audience left. They had allowed X amount of time away from their desks. They knew they wouldn't make it back that quickly, and they'd seen enough. Those who stayed amazingly rewarded our third big finish to our opening number with a round of applause that I could not have mustered. And finally, this time, the show carried on. Manhattan Theater Club did go on to do a full production of Captain's Courageous at City Center. I wasn't available to reprise my role, but the show turned out to be quite terrific. Treat Williams played Manuel. He was great.